back, everybody. You look away for just a second and then all of a sudden you're on screen. I'm so excited to introduce our next speaker. I hope you're all feeling super pumped. I know I'm full of energy after that chat. It was so wonderful. Digital connection and authenticity has sure taken on a new meaning this year. We all know that. Just because everyone is working with influencers doesn't mean everyone is doing it successfully. There are a lot of moving parts when it comes to developing, executing, and tracking an influencer marketing programs and communities. And our next speaker will share insights on running influence-led content programs, how an advocacy tonality lends intrinsic value on content, and how to create communities of influence to connect with your customers to realize the true power of influence as a part of the strategic mix in the world of modern marketing. Leader, builder, marketer, storyteller, public speaker, entrepreneur, and currently Vice President of Influencer Marketing and Communications at SAP. She leads the global PR, AR, influencing marketing, and advocacy teams for Ariba and Fieldglass. She's a busy lady. Please welcome Amisha Gandhi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here, Beth. Really excited to talk about this.
Thanks, Amisha.
So when we're thinking about influencer marketing, what is it? What does it really mean? And how does it relate to community? And how do you build a program to last, right? It's a big buzzword. It's gotten a lot of flack in B2C. So let's jump right in. When we think about influence, we want to inspire our audience, we want to engage with them, and we also want to listen, right? That's the whole part of influence. We want to create engagement, a call to action, and when we inspire people, we create really great brand advocacy and brand affinity. So when we think about influencer marketing, why, right? You always want to have an end goal and an outcome. So when you're creating a program, think of the outcome that you are really trying to achieve with your program. And if you make the right investment, then you will get the right ROI back. And we know on B2B, it works. We know definitely on B2C, it works. People click and they're able to buy a product, things sell out when certain types of influencers talk about them. And on B2B, it's a little bit different. It's more about influencing in a much longer sales cycle. But as you can see, everybody lives in a digital world and we're influenced by what we see online. And we think of them as our friends online or digital experts online. So we follow them and we may be influenced by their content. We may be influenced by the conversations that we're having and the knowledge that we learn and bring into our buying decisions. So influencer marketing, what is it really, right? It's really this practice of engaging both internal industry experts, influencers, social, and folks that are not social also. But the thing is that these folks have active networks. So this is nothing new, right? Word of mouth marketing has been around since the dawn of time. But now we have many different channels online and even offline to connect with these folks of active networks. And we're really trying to work and help, we want to influence the audience they've built, and we want to create and achieve measurable business goals through our activities and engagement with influencer marketing. It's about people, it's personal, it's about building a community, and it works because it's very relatable to the persona that you're trying to reach or influence or engage with. These are the different types of influencers. You can have analysts, you can have activists, you can have experts, you can have media, you can have people who are an industry insider. They might not even have a social media account. And on the B2C side, you have your customers, and also in B2B, your customers and your employees can also be your biggest influencers in the market, as well as folks that you're really trying to partner with. So here's some communities of influence that can help you really drive your business. You have those external influencers we just talked about, customers and employees, analysts and media. And there are also a lot of online communities and discussion groups and industry associations and customer groups and topic level groups, right, that you can be a part of. And the people leading these groups are the influencers of those groups. And how can you partner with them? And then a lot of times, a lot of us have business partners, right? So who are those partners that are helping us build our business, and how can we work with them? And if we work with all of these groups together in a programized way, we can really create our own community of influence that can really help you drive your business. So let's dig in a little bit. B2C versus B2B. So in B2C, you can see the influencer is different. You have someone who is, on Instagram, on TikTok, and more so. When on the B2B side, it's more LinkedIn and those professional groups and communities. But you can see the difference. We on the B2B side, it's a CEO, and she's well known in an industry. On the B2C side, it's someone that has a big following on Instagram, has a lot of engagement, has a YouTube channel, is creating a lot of videos and recommendations, and someone to watch, right? So one is more lifestyle, the other one is more professional. But again, they're both influencers in their own right, and they have different levels of followers and engagement, right? So don't let numbers fool you. And there are a lot of fake followers out there. So when you're looking at influencers, take the time to see how much engagement they have and what they're really driving. And when you think about it, on the B2B side, it's kind of ending on the way of more of advertising and media buys, and influencer relations. On the B2B side, it's about that influencer relations, but we get deeper into the marketing funnel with account-based marketing, with demand gen, content assets, and things like that we include influencers in, and co-creating content with them. And we also co-create content with B2C influencers as well. Just remember, when you're creating the relationships, it is a two-way relationship. It's long-term. Make it a collaboration versus, here's our campaign. Do you want to be a part of it? The more collaborative you can be, the better, and the more engagement you'll get from your actual influencer, and also buy-in and engagement that they will just, you will get a lot more organic engagement from your influencer, and their excitement comes through to their community. And a big piece of this is the community the influencers have created on their own, and they have this influence over that community, and you want to be a part of that too. And you can only do that if you're authentic with them. And on the B2B side, more so, we look at the customer journey. It's not as linear as it's drawn out here, but these are the different places where we can insert influencer content, influencers into conversations, very high impact, high touch sort of content and experiences that you can create with your influencers that can help increase your brand value, create advocacy, and have this community behind you, that you can always work with. And it's always on social. Some of the folks that we work with aren't even social, right? But they're authors and academics, and they have a different level of influence, but they have an influence on CIOs and CTOs and CPOs and CFOs, right? And then in the B2C world, when you think about building awareness and getting that consideration, it's almost immediate, right? Because they can put a link in and they can go right to your product and buy it. And on the B2B side, it's a little bit different because the sales cycle is a bit longer. So let's look at some examples of what this could look like in real life. And so I'll give you some B2B and B2C, examples. We invited a bunch of our influencers. We invite them to our events, when we were doing events in person, and now it's more virtual, right? So everyone's made that shift. But regardless of whether it's in person or virtual, we work with our influencers to have them speak at our events, to have them help us co-create presentations and content. We get feedback from them, from our community, see, how is this message resonating? Is this a great topic for the group that we're reaching out to? Does it make sense? So these are the kinds of the things that we do with our influencers, for an event, which is again in the awareness category. But you can see we did a virtual reality, asset with influencers, and they were promoting it when we launched it. They're promoting our, CTOs and CIOs and our executives speaking on stage. They are also promoting the fact that they're excited to speak at our event. Like, I promoted this event because I thought it was a fabulous event. And so when you're looking at this and you see, your audience sees that influencers, and, Tanya here in the corner, she is a big influencer in procurement for CPOs and CFOs because she has an association. and she's a leader of that association. So she's really well known in the industry. And while she may not have the biggest social following, when she writes about something on her website and includes it in her newsletter, she has a very specific audience that we're reaching out to, right? So it helps when they're promoting you in this way, but as you can see, it's with their own voice and their own audience. And then, of course, they're working with you, and you can give them hashtags and things like that. But again, it creates excitement with your event or your asset or whatever you're doing in a very different way. And it helps you get that authentic engagement that you wouldn't be able to get on your own through a brand channel. Because honestly, people like to talk to people online. And again, it goes back to that personal and relatable piece I talked about earlier. So when we think about, influencer marketing, so I'm going to give you a B2B example. We were launching SAP Leonardo. It was with 5 different types of technology. And I'm sorry, the movie doesn't work here, but it would show you an interactive asset that moves. And when you click through it, these little faces pop up. It tells you their title. You can click on it, and they're divided up into sections like analytics, IoT, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And you can go through this interactive experience and get their quotes. And then if you click, you can go to more in-depth information they've shared. And then it leads to a study that we've done, right? So it's this complete immersive experience, and our influencers are featured. And we also had a few customers in here, and this was a demand gen asset that we had on our website, and it helped us drive not only a lot of traffic to our site, but a lot of buzz when we launched this, because we had 32 influencers from B2B enterprise technology participate. We had 100% of the influencers share this, and we had 21 million impressions the first few weeks, which is quite a lot on the B2B side on a asset like this. So it was really helpful. It drove website traffic. It got out in social. It also got out in a lot of these other enterprise technology communities and helped us really drive really good engagement with the audience that we wanted to engage that may not have been thinking about us in these different realms. Another really great example, and I wanted to bring this up because we're really talking about community, because even the last group that I brought up with the SAP Leonardo, we created a group. We had a WhatsApp, app during the event and during the virtual events we did with our influencers. And that community went on for a year. We created a little intranet site where they could get more materials. And we created WhatsApp, where we started seeing the influencers engaging with each other, sharing their content, sometimes not related to us, and sometimes events that, other kind of industry events they were at, and they were asking if we were there and if they could stop by. So it, again, created really nice engagement and stickiness for our brand with, through them. This is a great example on the B2B side. So, and I actually belong to this community, and I was actually inspired to wear these earrings by some of the folks that I follow in this community. So this is a brand called Trinny London. They sell makeup. And what they've done is the CEO was a well-known influencer in the fashion industry and launched her own brand. But it is an amazing community because they started off and they had this community called Trinny Tribe. So, and you don't have to be a customer to join. She has her own channel where you can follow her, and she does a live video every day. And it's about skincare, health, women's health, beauty, about fashion. And it's a lot of fun to watch, and they're short, but they always have high value content. And then she's created a space called Trinny Tribe where, people that want to contribute can contribute. They can ask each other for advice. They have community managers, but what they also have is they have just regular people as ambassadors that are not part of their company of these tribes, and they're geographically based. So I belong on the West Coast one. There's one for London. There's, so many of them, and they have over 1,000 people, included. And you can also join the main one. So they have a variety of channels, and through Facebook is their community, but you can also, they reuse a lot of the content that she and her team create across Instagram and Twitter and other places. So they're getting a lot of value out of this wonderful content they're creating. They don't always talk about their product at all, so people don't feel like they're being sold to at all. You feel like you're getting really great advice because you are. It's very authentic. She'll show up with no makeup on, hair crazy, just like a regular person. So it's really real for people. And, I highlighted someone here. If you look in the middle, Val. And so she is one of the tribe members, and she's an ambassador, but she creates videos quite often, and a lot of people follow it. And if you look at some of the numbers on, some of the videos that are done, they're in the millions. And even the user generated content has several hundred likes and shares. And there's always, so many hundreds of comments on just different things. And in preparing for this, I actually put up some commentary myself, and I got a lot of engagement and a lot of advice back from a lot of the members. So this is something that you can create around your brand if you are able to give value back that's really truly valuable to the personas and the people that you're trying to reach. So this is a great example. And then, I worked on something with HP with Vivian Tam. We took a bunch of bloggers and folks to Fashion Week. This was over, a decade ago. And, this was a product that wasn't selling well. We did a program, and it worked quite well because we brought everybody to Fashion Week, and we had them meet with the designer of the technology as well as the fashion designer. And we had a cross section of fashion bloggers, tech bloggers, and mommy bloggers. So it was a really great program, and it went on for a few months. And we did giveaways with our bloggers and influencers, and the product eventually sold out. So there is different things, you can do that are event based also, but you can also do things that are long term and keep going and feeding your community of influence. And then we did a podcast series that did really well with our customers, employees, and influencers that drove over 15,000 downloads. And it's in a very niche topic, but again, you're working with people that are really creating content that is of high value to that end persona. And then this community from even the podcast series, we now have a community online where we're having them engage with customers and the like at events and virtual events and creating even more content. So as you can see, it just builds on itself. And some of the influencers have worked together on their own. So in conclusion, you want to be authentic. You don't want to be controller. You want to enable creativity and storytelling in a way that maybe you're not thinking about telling your story, but your influencers are able to do that for you. You want to vet carefully, look at their content, make sure they are the real experts in the field, and see what their attitude is. You want to make sure you're also not just saying, hey, say this about my brand, because as you can see here, it doesn't end up well, right? You want to really engage with the influencers that you brought in to be part of this influencer community. You want to offer an experience to your audience through these influencers. You want to educate and inform. You don't want to be, you don't want to just you don't even want to give away things, not product, but give away knowledge and share and be a part of the community as well. And then, don't be afraid to listen to your influencer or your community and let them lead some of the conversations or give you feedback that may change your campaign, but ultimately really make it super successful. And in the end, this is what you want. You want people to say, you can see here, these people are bombarded by different advertising, and now she's having a bottle, and this is, a friend and somebody he values, and says, I'll have what she's having, no matter what else he's seeing. So that's the real true power of influence and what it can bring for you if you do it in an authentic way and create a community feeling. So thank you for having me. I'd love to take some questions.
Hi, Amisha. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. We do have some questions from the audience. I feel like you're right that influencer marketing is probably a bit of an untapped powerhouse in the community industry. We call them all sorts of different things like super members and super fans. But I guess my first question is, the word influencer can sometimes have a negative connotation because it sometimes doesn't feel like their messaging is truly authentic. So how do you ensure influencer messaging does remain authentic?
So, it's in who you choose to work with, right? So you've looked at their content, you've established a relationship with them, and when you're working, either it's for an event and a lot of organic stuff happens. We don't say, "Oh, here's our message, use this only," right? We talk about the topic, we give them an education. So for that book, we actually had the folks that write about IoT meet with our IoT expert, talk about what is it that we were doing in that space, and they even gave us feedback at that point, right? And then they said, okay, well, this is what I would love. I think my audience would love this, so this is what I'm going to talk about, right? So we got that kind of engagement education up front. So, because some of these topics and some of these things can be quite broad, so you can have that conversation. So then when your influencer is talking on your behalf or representing you or even just participating, they have a really good idea of what the conversation should be and what makes most sense to their audience. And so that's how it becomes truly authentic, right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. We've got a couple more questions here. This is wonderful. So how do you balance influencer marketing and more intimate relationships with super users? Marissa says there are a lot of buzzwords out there: ambassadors, super users, champions. Do you view influencers as separate from these other programs? And how do you recommend they interact with the larger community?
So like I brought up in that slide, there are different communities of influence, right? So there's external influencers. We actually have an SAP community of developers, right? And they're quite influential, right, with our customers. So, think about when you're putting a program together, how can you pull some of these folks out and bring them together? And if it's, right now we're doing a lot of virtual events. So if you can even bring them together virtually or bring them into a content creation program you're doing and allow them to connect with each other too, because what starts happening is you start getting a lot more organic engagement between them, but that leads to the content or your program having much better high value content or high value pull into you because you're working. I would suggest bringing them together, and a lot of times they'll have conversations that they find really valuable that they can bring back with them, so they're getting something out of it too. Some of the influencers had never met some of our customers and some of our or our employee advocates, and they started having these conversations, and some of them are having conversations long after that and then start working on projects together.
I love that. An influencer community makes sense to me. Okay, we've got another one from Mason. How often do you engage with or communicate with your influencer partners?
So it depends. So if you have a program going on, so we think of the influencer marketing relationship or the influencer relationship, and this is more on the external part. We connect with them, not just during our programming, but we have a touch base with them. What are you working on? What are you seeing? Because sometimes they're going to events and participating. They're also working on content all the time. They're doing other presentations with their own private clients. On the B2C side, they're always talking and thinking of new ways of content. So ask them what they're working on, what they'd like to see, if you can help in any way. And sometimes it doesn't benefit you directly, but you're making an introduction for them. But we do these touch points, with our, certain folks in our influencer community because we have a long-term ongoing relationship. And we'll also say, here's some things and programs that we're working on. What do you think? So it gives us a good touch base. Think of it just like as a press relationship, an analyst relationship. You always have touch points with these groups, not just, when you're working with them on a program, because then it becomes more of a transactional relationship. Even, the influencers we pay to do keynotes and other things, we keep in touch with them, and those are not paid engagements. Those are, that's how you keep a relationship going, right? Even if it's, resharing some of their content and encouraging some of our employees, like, oh, this was a great article. It doesn't include us, but it's a great thought leadership piece by this influencer, and they can see that we're still engaging with them and we're still keeping them top of mind. So it kind of works both ways.
I like that. I think it is important to continue that kind of nurturing, so it's not just, like you say, transactional. All right. Oh, there's so many great questions here. How am I supposed to choose? Jessica says, What are some important things to add to your contracts with influencers to avoid pain and issues later? What do you wish you knew to put in a contract when you were first getting started?
So for me, when I think of the influencer contract, so it certainly depends. So let's look at the B2C side first, right? So you should put in what the expectations are. So, a lot of times influencers will say, oh, I was expected to do 10 posts and I'm out of gas after five. And then sometimes they'll say, oh, I did like 20 because it was just so much for me to talk about. So you should talk about, what makes sense for them. And if you're working with somebody by tweet, it's very transactional that way. But you want to really lay out like what you think you expect from them, what they think is going to work for them and their channel, where they don't come off as salesy, right? And then you come to that agreement and you outline it in the contract and be really clear. In B2B, I don't ever put in my contract, oh, you're going to do 10 tweets for me during this time. We talk about pre-promotion if you're speaking and it's paid, what are some of the content that we'd love for you to be involved in, and what does that look like, and what you will deliver by when, right? So we have those things in, but we never put in like, oh, these are the exact social media things we want, right? Of course, we have a different audience and the content we're doing, right? So, and we have a lot of trust built with our influencers, right? On the B2C side, you're looking at it sometimes as a mass play with hundreds of influencers at a time in a program. So you do have to be much more specific about what you want so that everyone is clear, so no one ends up unhappy on the other side. And do listen to your influencers when they say, that's not going to work for my audience. Ask them what will. They may actually come up with better content than what you originally had.
Fair. I mean, they got that audience for a reason. They're clearly good at it. So that's really good advice. Well, Amisha, thank you so much. We're out of time. I would like to ask you, though, is there some way that our attendees can ask these questions after today? There's still quite a few in the chat.
Sure. You could reach out to me on Twitter at Amisha Gandhi, or you could reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's amisha.gandhi@sap.com to LinkedIn to me, and I'm happy to answer your questions there. So reach out. Love to have a conversation.
Awesome.
And thank you so much for having me on. This was terrific.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Amisha. It was a pleasure to have you, and we'll see you next time.